All right, so I just want to put it out there to start. I don't support anybody being harassed. Even the most disgusting political opponent that I have, I don't want them harassed because I don't think it actually does anything. You know, I think we put way too much stock in these figures, and we always ignore the fact that the figures don't matter as much as the audience that they attract. You know, the mass of people following them is more important than they themselves. So I don't even support harassment of some of the people that I think are totally reprehensible. And I watched this video, and I don't think this person's totally reprehensible. But I think there's a lot of stuff in here that I disagreed with. There's a lot of stuff in here that I do agree with. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I feel like is just catty and mean and petty and weird. So I'm going to take a look at this and give you my thoughts and opinions as we go. And I'm not trying to contribute to some sort of harassment campaign against somebody, but I'm also not going to ignore something just on the basis of that.
A couple of years ago, I made a video about the then topical controversy surrounding ContraPoints freely working with violent bigots and getting really sniffy when other trans people thought that was a bad idea. Now, ContraPoints got in trouble at least twice after that, and there was a big blow up when Lindsay Ellis got in trouble for being really sniffy about people complaining about a racist take and rage quit her job, but I never made videos after that.
I cannot remember for the life of me what Lindsay Ellis's cringe race take or whatever was, but I do remember that it was pretty much nothing. I remember that Lindsay Ellis was one of these people that was just like canceled for no damn reason. Like she said something that like you have to like contort yourself into a pretzel to find racist. And then a fucking huge mob of haters fucking showed up with torches and pitchforks and ran her off.
Of a lot of frustration with someone I had thought was a progressive ally, whereas all the instances that came later didn't have that same frustration because I no longer felt that either of these people, or any of the people getting in trouble since then, were anything other than performers.
This is one of the instances where I find myself kind of in agreement with this person. There are a lot of people, especially in like the political sphere of YouTube, that are primarily performers. I would consider myself to be one of them. I don't think that being a performer necessarily makes your opinion invalid or makes you need to be taken less seriously, but I definitely think it should be put forth that a performer is a fucking performer. And a performer's primary purpose is to engage the audience. And that means that I think that there's like a certain level of distrust of performers. It harkens back to something I said in a recent video of mine where I was talking about my contribution to the anti-SJW genre, which I think is pretty significant. And it was that there was an adage I used to have on this platform, which is that if you could say something true or something interesting, say the interesting thing over the true thing. And I think that that is something that a lot of YouTubers to this day do sort of survive on. Now, I have since then found ways, I think, to balance that equation out a little better, but I think there's still a lot of people that, you know, when they create channels, even if they are, you know, doing things in the realm of politics, their primary concern is still with saying things that are, you know, incendiary or interesting or fascinating or presenting themselves in a particular way or in a particular light so that they can be the center of attention. And so sometimes the ideas and the politics, even on a political channel, can take a back seat to how I want the audience to feel and how I want them to perceive me and all of these other different things that are a matter of like the performance and the aesthetics and things. So I think that that is a legitimate concern. I think maybe in this video it's a little bit overblown, but still, I do think there is a valid point to be had there.
Buck Angel, a notorious trans medicalist. This was coming off the heat of several years of ContraPoints engaging in what I like to call J.K. Rowling politics, where she views conservatives as sincere but wrong and progressives as dishonest and hiding an agenda. I feel it's a little more nuanced than that, Lil. Yeah, but that's a general...
All right, this is this long version that I guess they didn't feel like reading, but they're going to show us. So ContraPoints is normally progressive centrist, and an inherent ideological flaw of centrism is that to be a centrist, you have to think the left and right are both wrong, but because the left is mostly right on damn near everything and no amount of honest research will ever change that, a common way to decry the left without being immediately debunked is to claim they don't actually believe the things they say and are actually paying lip service in the name of a completely different agenda, drawing comparisons to Lenin, Stalin, Zedong, and other oligarch leaders who use socialist language to take power. Pop culture is also fond of this approach to progressives and loves to make progressive villains who turn out to be liars all along, like Korra, Marvel, Harry Potter, Ruby. We'd be here all for hours if I went through the whole list. So this idea that you know, the left is always correct, and that because, you know, so a centrist who wants to attack the left can only attack it by saying that it's like dishonest. I mean, not only is that, I think, overly simplistic, and, you know, the idea that the left is even homogenous enough to always be right about everything. Like, if you're going to say the left is right about damn near everything, like, which left? Which one? Because there's a lot of them. They don't all agree. And by the way, like, the idea that the only way a centrist can attack their opponents is by saying that they don't really believe what they claim to believe is exactly the attack you just used on ContraPoints a minute ago. You said because ContraPoints and Lindsay Ellis are primarily performers that, you know, we shouldn't take them seriously when they say things of substance or whatever. And so that's the only attack you seem to have so far. So even though I do kind of agree that we do need to be cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of performers in this YouTube space because it is primarily an entertainment platform, you know, we don't need to just totally dismiss anything that's said because of that. You can't just be like, oh, well, they're performing, so nothing they're saying means anything. Performers and the things that are said during performance and the audience that reacts to those performances are definitely worthy of consideration. And if you didn't believe that, you shouldn't be running a channel about fandom. The only left that matters is TJ's left nut. I think we all should applaud that. And we all should applaud that perfect line.
People had been growing increasingly discontented with her for a long time. And the problem is that we all just ostensibly assumed that because she was a trans woman, that she was as much of a true lefty socialist as the rest of us.
All right, can we talk about a weird phenomenon that happens on the left, especially with trans people? Anytime a trans woman comes into prominence, other trans women inevitably start to attack them. And this is across the board, whether it's ContraPoints or Keffels or fucking whoever. This seems to be a universal trait. So what is going on there? Now, I'm not a trans woman myself, so it's really not up to me to figure it out or answer, but I can see it happening. So I question it. Like, why is that? Is there a component of, dare I raise the specter of jealousy going on here? TJ is 100% grifter and performer. Don't know why he denies it. I don't deny being a performer. If I wanted to be a grifter, it'd be so much fucking easier to grift the right wing than the fucking left. I saw a guy the other day. I won't even mention his fucking name, but I went on some right wing websites and I was watching a guy that was literally the most boring human being I've ever fucking seen. And he was just spouting a bunch of fucking shit about the Jews, and he had 800 people watching him. He had like 120 bazillionth of my fucking charisma and could barely fucking string together a coherent sentence. But because he was talking shit on the Jews, he had all kinds of views. So, yeah, I mean, it's way easier to grift the right. Way the fuck easier to grift the right. So if I was a grifter, I would definitely be grifting the right. I would not be trying to attack right-wing figures on the platform. It's way easier on their side. It's way more nerfed. And guess what? There's way more consensus over on that side. Right-wingers are very collectivistic. So whatever the fucking issue of the day is, there's not much disagreement. I've said this before, but if you talk to 10 right-wingers, you're going to hear the same thing phrased 10 different ways. If you talk to 10 left-wingers, you're going to hear not only 10 different things, but you're going to hear every single one of them talking massive shit about the other 9 and how fucking wrong they are and how they're not true leftists. YouTubers aren't perfect should not be a controversial statement, so don't bitch at me in the comment. But who is perfect? No one's perfect. It's so not a controversial statement that it's almost like, why did you even bother to put it forth as a fucking idea? No one believes YouTubers are perfect, and no one would ever fucking say that they were, but no one's perfect. I mean, anybody who thinks that there are perfect people running around this planet, show them to me, because I ain't fucking seen the motherfuckers. I mean, obviously, other than when I look in the mirror.
Between ostensibly leftist politics and content farming for money. LeftTube was similar to the cartoon community in that on YouTube it's a relatively niche environment with only a handful of standouts. There can only be one H-Bomber guy or Phantom Strider, and the rest mostly
By the way, I don't know who either of those guys are. Well, H-Bomber guy I heard of. Phantom Strider never even heard of.
About picking up the scraps. And I say this as a proud scrap picker myself. But what inevitably happens
We all love them scraps.
when a community of content creators establishes itself is that everyone comes in looking for their little piece of the clout pie. There's a common discussion nowadays regarding debating the alt-right.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. They're totally right about this part. If someone out there exposes a mine of material that you can easily convert into content, which means you can easily convert it into money, which means you can easily convert it into, you know, clout, influence, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yeah, everybody jumps on that. When there was like a rich vein of atheist content on YouTube, yeah, we were all on that. We were all chasing that atheist clout. And then it moved on to the anti-SJW stuff, and we were all on that. We were all chasing that clout. When someone in a community exposes like a rich vein of content, yeah, other content creators are going to jump on that fucking vein. But like, the problem is there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is not like, hey, there's a trend going on right now. Trends are part of the human experience. Just like right now, every movie that's getting made is a fucking superhero movie. And, you know, in 10 years, it'll be something else. Right now, you know, in the communities that I'm in, it's popular to fucking criticize a bunch of right-wing assholes for saying a bunch of crazy right-wing fucking Nazi-adjacent bullshit and attacking trans people left and right. And, you know, trying to roll back the clock on gay rights and you know, trying to ceaselessly make sure that, you know, unions are weak and that workers are, you know, sort of consigned to this status quo of accepting peanuts for compensation. You know, that's the kind of shit that, you know, I'm interested in attacking. And I feel like there is a positive effect in attacking that. Just like I feel like there was definitely a positive effect for the atheist content I made. Now, when I made anti-SJW content, I never really viewed there as being that much of a positive effect of that other than for my pocketbook, you know? That was definitely something I was doing just because, hey, this seems popular. And, you know, every once in a while, there would be something culturally that I feel like, oh, I'm taking a stand on this issue culturally or whatever. Like, you know, the treatment of men versus the treatment of women in media. How it was totally acceptable for Sharon Osbourne to go on her little ripoff of The View and laugh about a dude getting his dick chopped off and shoved in a garbage disposal when no one would ever laugh if the roles were reversed in that scenario, right? So sometimes it became about a larger cultural issue, but for the most part, it was mostly just like, look at this dumb SJW moron who just said that we can't use the term hard worker because slaves were the real hard workers, and you need to think about that before you say that term. It's like, no, we don't. You're a fucking moron. You're a nitwit. But I never felt like I was doing anything culturally important when I made content about how that person's an idiot. I just felt like I was mocking a particular idiot. But when I was making atheist content, and I guess I'm kind of back into doing that a little bit, I felt like that had social value. And when I'm making fun of like crazy right-wing asshole despots, I feel like that has social value. So I don't really care that it's a trend. I don't really care that I'm profiting from it. I feel like I'm profiting from it, but I'm also doing something that I find to be within the framework of my own personal ethics. So yeah, I don't think there's anything problematic about that, but maybe there is.
Or rather, just the right. People will say that it helps debunk conservative thought, but that's always been a very tenuous leg to stand on. You can't destroy a school of thought by owning one guy with facts and logic.
No one ever has fucking said, like, I want to debate against a Christian, therefore Christianity is defeated. No one has ever said, I want to debate against a conservative, therefore conservatism is defeated. But you know what? If you enter into enough debates where the atheist continuously looks better than the Christian and has better evidence, and there's enough debates where the progressive continuously looks better than the conservative, yeah, after a while, people start to look at that and say, like, hey, one side seems to have all the good points, and the other side seems to be kind of like confused and muddling and prudish and whatever the fuck else. And that can change hearts and minds. You know, obviously, the ideological struggle is never like finished with a bow wrapped around it, like, aha, finally we've defeated them. Like, that's a weird expectation. So you're basically saying anything less than like a YouTuber going out there and completely defeating an ideology for all time, anything less than that is just not even worth it? That's a really fucking stupid ass backwards motherfucking standard.
Ben Shapiro is not the supreme leader of fascism, but that doesn't stop everyone debating him 17 times a day. Why? Because it's easy. It's easy content. It's an easy content farm. You don't have to do much, and you don't have to be very smart. And
that's true.
And that's the debate bro grift.
Here's where you're right. You're right when you say Ben Shapiro is easily debated, because he is. You're right when you say Ben Shapiro is a fucking idiot, because he is. Where you're wrong is there no value in debating him? There is value in debating him because there are people who listen to him. And every time he receives pushback, that is a chance for some of those people currently fucking nodding their heads when Ben Shapiro talks to fucking get themselves exposed to, like, hey, wait a minute. There are other points of view. There are other ways of seeing this. Maybe Ben Shapiro isn't to be trusted. Maybe Ben Shapiro, just because he can talk fast, is not necessarily an authority on this. Maybe the entire framework that Ben Shapiro has sort of like seduced me into becoming ensnared in is a lie, and I should look elsewhere. And, you know, to say that those people are not worth trying to convince otherwise is a really strange idea to me, because those people cause problems. You know, if a bunch of people are going around fucking following, you know, a Hitler type, I'm not saying Ben Shapiro is the equivalent of Hitler, but if there's a Hitler going around saying Hitler shit, and there are people fucking arguing with Hitler, you know, would you go to those people and be like, why are you even bothering? Don't even bother trying to argue with Hitler. Just let him be Hitler and let his followers be the Nazis. I think it's kind of worth pushback, whether it's super effective or not. If you can convince even like a couple of Nazis to be like, you know what, nah, that's a good thing. How is it not a good thing? It's a good thing.
It's always been the debate bro grift. But the problem is that any audience who likes debates as content won't stick around for the same easy targets, so instead they have to make more reaches. Ian Kuczynski made a name for himself debating the alt-right.
How dare you attack Voosh? Voosh is my god! How dare you? How dare you?
Right, in an extremely edgy fashion, utilizing slurs and large screaming declarations, but as his audience became increasingly bored of it, he had to branch out. The problem was he didn't really have a praxis outside of class reductionism and calling people Nazis, and when he did branch out, he ended up just calling people Nazis.
Pro tips for life. Low-income white neo-Nazis are not your poor little meow-meows. Not everyone who tells you to care about racism is a Nazi, you moron.
Any concept that was more complicated to him than Nazis bad, working class good would inevitably be filtered through increasingly unhinged hypotheticals to worm the subject back to that framework.
I mean, the crazy thing to me is that if you ever have watched a Vosh stream, you know that this is like a total mischaracterization. Because Vosh is completely capable of constructing some pretty intelligent thoughts on the fly. Even if you don't agree with his thoughts on a subject, it doesn't just all boil down to like working class good, Nazis bad. And I mean, for fuck's sake, sometimes the Nazis and the working class are one and the fucking same. In fact, it happens more often than you'd think. So that isn't even congruent. I don't know how good of an extemporaneous speaker Lily Orchard is, but I would venture to guess that probably not as good as Vosh is.
Most infamously when he screeched accusations of white genocide at a black woman sight unseen for arguing about land back, which...
Sight unseen? I don't know. Wasn't she on his show?
Is the return of stolen land to indigenous people, which, if you live in the United States or Canada right now, is the land currently under your feet.
Right, which is why that issue is a fucking political non-starter. and really, like, dumb and ass backwards, because, like, yeah, land was stolen from indigenous people. No denial there. But, like, the solution to that problem is not to, like, let's go back, let's give them the land back. Because, like, where the fuck are all the people that are currently on the land supposed to go that had nothing to fucking do with that? Yeah, they benefit from it, but, like, so what? Like, it's a political non-starter to go around to people and be like, get the fuck off your land. What do you mean? It's because it's not really your land. Your ancestors stole it from my ancestors a long time ago. It's like, okay, well, sorry about that, but, like, we've got, like, a house here now, and there's, like, I work at the grocery store over... Nope! Head back to Europe. Like, what? No. Fuck you. This idea that you can just solve a political, like, a wrong of the past by just, like, roll it back. No matter what the logistics are, No matter how fucking stupid or inconvenient or like implausible that is, just undo it. Just press the reset button. It's like, you can't. There's 300 million people here now.
Ian in that when it comes to white people, he wants all that ooh-woo democratic socialism, but when it comes to anyone else, he's usually all about mass ethnic cleansing. Jewish people living on stolen land and doing ethnic cleansing, he wants to nuke the civilians. White people living on stolen land and doing ethnic cleansing, well, stopping him from doing that is hurting him specifically, so he doesn't like that. This class...
That was a really weird fucking comparison. As far as Israel goes, I don't believe in borders, so I believe that, you know, Palestinians and Israelis just need to get along. Maybe that's naive, but I really don't see what the other solution is. The other solution is one of them kills the other. And I don't really like that. So to me, they have to fucking learn to put their differences aside. You know, and if America can come to the point where we are now, and I'm not saying things are perfect here, they're clearly not. There's still clearly a lot of fucking racism that has to be worked through, but you know, we went from lynchings and Jim Crow and shit to, you know, having enough people in this country willing to fucking vote for a black president. You know, if I didn't like Obama in any way, shape, or form, but I at least like that he proved that America was no longer so racist that we couldn't accept a black person as our head of state. You know, obviously there's still a fucking long goddamn way to go on that kind of shit. I believe that the world belongs to all the people of the world, and to a lesser extent, the animals and plants and shit, because they were here too. But I'm a human supremacist. I am. So I believe that all the peoples of the world should have all the lands of the world. I don't really believe in borders. I don't really believe in states. Now, I don't how to make that feasible. I don't know. I'm willing to fucking admit that I don't have those answers. But I think that's what we should aspire to. And so this idea that we need to this is our land, this is our land. It's like these kind of arguments to me are the very reason why human history is fucking riddled with bloodshed. And as soon as we let that shit go and stop fucking murdering each other over fucking dirt, the better off we'll be as a goddamn species, in my opinion.
And make no mistake, Ian is a white supremacist.
Yeah, of course. I mean, make no mistake. Like, this is where it's just like, come the fuck on, dude. You are so insane if you believe that. You know that's not true. This is just like this ultra hyperbolic sort of like, all of my opponents are fucking Nazis bullshit. It's ironically the thing that Vosh gets accused of all the damn time is you just say all your opponents are Nazis. Well, here is the real life version of that. The real life version of that is a person who looks at a pretty lefty dude, maybe not left enough for everybody's taste, but pretty fucking left, and saying like, this is a white supremacist, everybody. This dude right here that is like numerous times fought against systemic racism here and abroad. Vosh has literally attacked fucking sock dems, saying that, you know, your system of governance would still involve exploitation of the third world. They don't call it the third world anymore. They call it global south. But they would that. So he's willing to go to that point of being like, I don't even want a sock dem society because that's too racist. But this fucking chick is going to call him a white supremacist for that? Like, that is fucking nuts, bro. That is insane. You have lost the fucking plot at that point.
You can make all the ooh-woo wise of the proletariat speeches you want, accusing people of color of wanting to genocide white people, or suggesting that there's merit to the conspiracy theory that Jewish people control global banking is pretty...
That is such a fucking mischaracterization right there. Like, Vosh has never said Jewish people control global banking. He has said, because it's true, that they're overrepresented in global banking. And he has also explained the historical reasons for that and how they were basically forced into that position by anti-Semitism. Because back in the day, it used to be illegal for Christians to be moneylenders. And so, as a result of that, Jewish people ended up being the moneylenders. And it was convenient whenever there was an economic catastrophe for the king to blame it on the Jews. And so that's why there are a disproportionate number of Jews involved in finance to this day. It's not because of some evil Jewish cabal. It's because of white supremacy. It's because of anti-Semitism. It's because of kings and despots wanting to use the Jews to excuse their own bad economic policy. So this fucking weird notion that Vosh somehow has bolstered the arguments of anti-Semites is completely and utterly false.
Fucking telling.
And as far as the thing with the calling this chick a believer in white genocide, I don't know. I don't remember the fucking, I don't know the context of that.
Too young. Those are both things she did.
Ian is
Not
a
really.
grifter.
I know at least one of those he didn't do. As far as the other one goes, maybe he did it. I'm not sure. I didn't see.
Does all of this for content and money. He isn't very smart, he isn't politically motivated, and he's a very emotionally stunted white man with all of the opinions of someone who didn't get beaten up enough in high school. But because he sometimes says all the right
Yeah, I mean, this person, by the way, I think it's about the time to show you just how fucking far this person's VDS goes. Because they have a post on their Tumblr from back in the day that literally just says someone really needs to just kill Vosh. So, like, this person just has a seething hate boner for Vosh. Or honestly, I mean, like, hates Vosh, hates ContraPoints, hates Lindsay Ellis, basically hates anybody who is nominally or marginally left that has exceeded their own popularity. It's really what it seems to me. My read on this situation is anybody to the left that is more popular than I am is a disingenuous performer, whereas I am the true leftist. That's what this reads like to me. Let me know if you disagree, but that's what I'm getting.
I have always been a big proponent of understanding the difference between stated politics and actual politics. Ian's Wikipedia page has to clarify his politics as self-described left-wing. That's how bad he is at being left-wing. We all just have to take his word for it most of the time. Give people enough time, they'll show you who they are. You just have to stop ignoring it. See, the thing about
Yeah, I mean, like, you've kind of shown us that you're just, like, basically motivated by pettiness and jealousy, right?
ContraPoints' flagrant courting of right-wing figureheads like Buck Angel and Blair White and the deriding of trans people pushing for visibility as radicals is that ContraPoints was doing what a lot of breadtubers do, positioning where she was politically, philosophically, and socially as the Overton window and everything to the left of her.
As if everyone doesn't fucking do that. George Carlin observed this, that if you're in traffic, everyone going slower than you is an idiot and everyone going faster than you is a maniac, right? It's the same thing politically. Anyone that's to the left of you is like, oh my God, they've degenerated into lunacy. Anyone to the right of you, oh my God, they're a Nazi. By the way, I'm not even a fucking ContraPoints fan. I knew ContraPoints before she even transitioned. I mean, she's made videos against me. I've made videos against her in her previous identity. We don't like each other. So don't think I'm some kind of like ContraPoints fanboy here, defending her out of some like, oh, wow, how dare you attack my Contra. I'm not. I don't even like Contra all that much. But even I know this isn't fair.
Tube. They position where they are as peak leftism and everything else is either the far right or a woke distraction. Many of them are only tenuously leftist and many of them hold far right views, but they also don't like capitalism. Indeed, much of BreadTube is of the opinion that opposing capitalism is the only real leftist priority and everything else is a distraction, which does.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I think it is the primary one because I feel like a lot of that stuff. Okay, so here, let's break down what's on the screen here. This person's very fond of making you fucking pause the video and read. It's like, couldn't you read this to me? Isn't that what we're doing here? Anyway, class reductionism, the belief that class is the only real form of bigotry and that all other forms of bigotry are used to enforce and maintain capitalism. Reality, capitalism, patriarchy, heteronormativity, cisnormativity, and class are tools of white supremacy, and those saying we need to focus on class are pawn of white supremacists because it involves telling marginalized people that their struggles don't matter. I would say both of these are bullshit. This class reductionism, yeah, it's a problem. But this, planning the reality that like, oh man, it's like all this stuff working with white supremacy and anybody who only wants to talk about class is clearly just like playing into the hands of the white supremacist. No, because the white supremacist, if they're a true white supremacist, wants capitalism. Because once again, capitalism is far more compatible with fascism than it is with socialism. The further left you go, the more you're going to see capitalism either reduced in power or destroyed. The further right you go, the more you're going to see capitalism bolstered. So a fascist is way more like, because you can have fascism and capitalism. You can't have like a radical left government or a radical left lack of government where it's just like, you know, a self-organized anarchic sort of social system, and still have fucking capitalism. Unless you're going to do anarcho-capitalism, which is really like a contradiction in terms and would just really be, that would just boil down to a lot of like corporate entities fighting each other in like wars and shit. But I don't want to get too far into like this like hypothetical realities and shit. The reality is that capitalism can be nominally left on some social issues if it feels like there's profit in it, but it's never going to let you go all the way to socialist. It's never going to dismantle itself except by accident, in like the way that capitalism might self-cannibalize. I think that a lot of times if you attack capitalism, you're attacking a lot of this other stuff, because it relies on those tools to survive.
Any leftist policy that doesn't prioritize anti-racism is just conservatism with a hammer and sickle. And the
prioritize is such a weird thing. Like, okay, here's an example. So let's say you want to address the problem that black people are, you know, by and large, have a lesser percentage of wealth than white people in America. You know, you can pass something that's just directly like, let's just directly give money to people on the basis of them being black. But then you're ignoring the fact that there are plenty of black people who are well-to-do. And you're ignoring the fact that there are plenty of white people who are not well-to-do. So wouldn't it make more sense to look at it from an economic perspective and say like, hey, instead of raising up the poor black, let's just raise up all the poor. And that is disproportionately going to help black people because they're disproportionately poor. So even though the approach is classist, it addresses a racial disparity by the very nature of it, because a lot of the ways in which black people are oppressed is economic. But there's no reason to just say, like, let's look at the problem through the lens of race, because it makes more sense to look at it through the lens of class, because then you can address the totality of the problem. You address the racial disparity by addressing the economic disparity.
crux of the response to most of the criticism of ContraPoints was largely people telling ContraPoints that she needs to start caring about how other people think and feel, and ContraPoints going,
But like, I don't wanna, you know?
This was someone who,
I'm pretty sure ContraPoints, whatever her failings might be, at least gives some consideration to the feelings of other people. Like, I don't think ContraPoints is like this cold, unfeeling, absolute narcissist who doesn't give a rat's ass about anyone else's feelings. First of all, she couldn't even do that as a performer, because like your earlier thing is that you're basically implying she's just a grifter and a performer and doesn't really give a shit about anything. Well, even a person like that has to give a shit about the thoughts and feelings of others, because they have to juggle those and manage those and not offend everybody. They have to fucking know what to say to people, at least enough to tell them what they want to hear. So even if ContraPoints was a total grifter, a 100% performer, didn't give a shit about anything she said, she would still have to care about the thoughts and feelings of other people just to be successful as a grifter / performer.
like Ian, was largely only leftist because we assumed this of her, and even she would contest that and say, nah, I'm like more of a centrist. And a lot of her more out there videos, particularly Envy, came off more and more like she was superimposing her own experiences with gender and capitalism onto everybody. This is clearly a woman who has developed a taste for the finer things in life and generally wants to be a part of upper society, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Socialism has long had to contend with the fact that a lot of people in it just want to have the means to survive, while a lot of other people look on at the wealthy with searing envy. But that latter group is never going to be happy because that opulent wealth just can't exist without an exploitative system to surround it. Socialism isn't about making everyone wealthy, it's about making everyone stable. But this performative approach to wealth and opulence is a blinder, especially if you make a 6-figure salary. This is doubly so for gender.
I love that the video that she singles out from ContraPoints is the Envy video, because it's pretty clear that this person, Lily, is dripping with it. Just absolutely drenched in envy. And in the same way that maybe some people long for wealth, it's pretty clear that Lily longs for the level of clout and influence that ContraPoints has. And since she can't obtain it, she has to attack it as an unworthy pursuit. It's basically just an instance of sour grapes at this point.
Wannabe philosopher, ContraPoints tends to assume that there's a deep-seated philosophical reason in non-binary people's existence because, well, she's got a lot of deep-seated contradictory feelings about gender, surely everyone does. This rather
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people probably do, yeah.
infamous clip is rather telling in that regard.
So the polite thing to do here is easy. If someone asks you to call them they, you call them they.
Pretentious. The truth of the matter is that using someone's pronouns doesn't really have a why outside of because I said so. It's like asking the reason you should use someone's name. I'm a proponent of what I call totalitarian gender. Essentially, someone's gender, name, pronouns, etc. aren't up for debate. They are for an individual to dictate on whatever weird whims they desire. If they want their pronoun to be anomaly, then anomaly pronoun is anomaly. End of discussion. In that framework, the only reason why you're using they, them pronouns for someone is because it's polite and there is literally nothing else to call them. And there really isn't a deeper reason for that. There might be to that person, but you shouldn't need that explanation and you aren't owed it. Cis people don't have to justify their own existence like this. The gender binary isn't this all-encompassing thing. Really, only Europe ever cared about it, and every other culture had their own idea about gender in the first place. Thanks, colonialism. But gender as a construct has only ever been this important thing because cis people made it an important thing.
So is gender important or not? You say that it's only important because cis people made it important, but then you're saying if someone doesn't instantly respect even the weirdest pronouns that's hard to remember in the world, if someone's like, I am anomaly gender and you will address, my pronouns are anomaly and shamalama ding dong, you will say that or you will be punched. I will break your teeth. I am a totalitarian genderist. So wait, those two, it's incompatible what you've said. Is it important or is it not important? Is it so important that you should punch people over it, or is it so unimportant that it's just only the cisgenders made it a fucking big deal? Other cultures had other ideas. Like what? You don't see how incongruent that is? By the way, this idea that someone either follows your gender line or they're like they deserve like violence done against them is just a might makes right argument, which makes you a better contender for a fascist or a Nazi than it does Vosh, by the way. You ever watched like an Arthurian legend movie or read any of the fucking Arthurian myths, and they have like this thing where like, oh yeah, now you know, Guinevere has been accused of sleeping with Lancelot, so now there must be trial by combat, or any other fucking, you know, work of fiction where there's trial by combat, and it's basically like whoever prevails must be the truth teller. Like you've basically fallen into that dumb fuck space where now like violence will appraise us of the answer to this query. You know, if you don't agree with me, violence shall be done upon you. And that's how we will determine what is true. It's like, what?
It's like that old question of, why is there gay pride but no straight pride? Because nobody's trying to kill you, that's why. Why?
I mean, really, no, there's not many people trying to kill gay people in this day and age either, all right?
Is there Black Lives Matter but no White Lives Matter? Because no...
There is White Lives Matter. It's just not as socially recognized because they don't need it. White people are doing just fine. Now, you talk to certain white people, you might hear different, but, like, they don't have any fucking actual facts to back it up, so we can easily just be like, meh.
Nobody's trying to kill you, that's why! If they weren't trying to kill us, it wouldn't be a big thing. People would just be trans and that's it. It would be no more nuanced or complicated than...
Do I want to be happy the rest of my life or miserable?
And it's like...
I love how Vosh is, like, this crazy white supremacist, but Family Guy gets it right. Like, what?
Idea that there's more to it than just being polite to other human beings as a form of privilege. It's putting the existence of non-binary people up for debate. Even if you are ostensibly in favor of non-binary people, you shouldn't be having that debate with anyone at all. There shouldn't...
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like shouldn't be debated. Like when someone tells me that they think there's a God, I feel like that's really stupid. And I shouldn't have to debate that, but I still will because there are people who believe otherwise. If someone tells me they don't believe that non-binary is valid, I will argue with that. But I'm not going to say like this shouldn't even be a debate. I mean, it shouldn't be because they shouldn't be that stupid, but they are. You can't just hand wave away stupidity like, well, it shouldn't be up for debate. I refuse to even debate it because I'm not going to legitimize it. Like, it's already legitimized by the fact that people believe otherwise. You can't just hand wave an idea away. Like, yeah, there's flat earthers out there. They're fucking stupid. But I would debate one because they're fucking wrong. You know, I mean, like, I don't think it legitimizes flat earthers to have the debate with them. Because during that entire debate, I'm just gonna be like, you're a clown.
Be an option to not be in favor of non-binary people. These are not people to be debated at all. This is not a position to be debated.
It is, though. I mean, I say this as a fucking non-binary person, or a person who, I guess, rejects the binary, whatever you fucking want to label me. I don't agree that it's not up for debate. Everything's up for debate. Like, whether the human race deserves to exist is up for debate. Whether there's a God is up for debate, even though I've already decided on that. A lot of things that I think are not even worthy of debating anymore because they're so fucking obvious are still up for debate because other people are always going to think differently. And if you're going to say that's not up for debate, then you have to propose, I mean, what you're basically proposing here, which is that, like, okay, violence should be done against anyone who dares question this orthodoxy. And if you're going to propose, like, violence to enforce an idea, then that idea better have some real fucking weight behind it. You know, I mean, I feel like it's really fucking weird to jump straight from, like, if someone doesn't use the pronouns I want, violence. Instantly, violence. And then say, well, they're trying to kill us. Well, it seems like you're fucking also trying to do some harm to them. So I don't mean to, like, equivocate shit, because clearly you're a less powerful social force than they are. But it's still like you're thinking along the same lines as them. I mean, don't you think that the worst thing here, worse than legitimizing this debate about non-binary people, don't you think it's worse to legitimize violence to enforce political ideals? And I'm not saying that violence is never called for, but Jesus Christ, is the bar low here.
Is not a democracy. It's not a matter of opinion. It is a totalitarian state. I will tell you what my name and pronouns are, and disagreement is not an option if you like having all of your teeth. And
I mean, that's all well and good until the person who disagrees with you is bigger and stronger, which I'm going to assume is not all that rare of an instance. If you tell your name and pronouns to, like, a fucking, I don't know, 7 foot tall fucking muscle bound motorcycle gang member with, like, a fucking chain in his hands or something, are you still gonna be like, oh yeah, prepare to lose your teeth? Because I'm pretty much sure that's not gonna work out for you. Maybe, like, we shouldn't base truth on who can fight the best for their belief, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of instances where the people who are the strongest and the people who are the most correct are not the same fucking people.
And this is the case for everyone. Disagreement with an individual's identity is not an opening for debate. It is not an opening for fierce opposition. They are not to be entertained. They are to be shunned and alienated entirely. There is no philosophical explanation for trans people more nuanced than they exist. Their existence is not to be debated for sport. And that's what all of this is. It's sport. That's why breadtubers put so much stock in debating the alt-right, because that's their sport. Their audience isn't here for active participation in politics, they're here for professional wrestling.
Some people are good at debate. They go debate. Some people are good at, like, other forms of fucking, activism, praxis, whatever the fuck. They go do that. Why the fuck does there have to be this, like, massive, like, oh my God, no. These debate grifters are a bunch of fucking pieces of shit. Why? Because you're not good at it? Is that what it boils down to? Is this just another instance of envy? Is this another instance of jealousy? You're no good at debating people, so therefore the entire fucking sphere of debate is just all a lie? It legitimizes the opposition to even dare to debate them. We should just declare by fiat that we're correct, and anyone who doesn't agree that we're correct gets their fucking teeth broken, bro. I mean, nice LARP and all, but you're full of shit. You're full of shit, and you're full of envy, and you're just insanely petty.
They're here to see people fight. They're here to see what stupid fucking costume they're gonna put on this time. And you know, that's fine if you remember what it is you're actually doing and what you're actually here for, and your political discussions are more esoteric and pie in the sky, like democratic socialism versus social liberalism, rather than debating people's inherent right to exist. Not every content creator is politically driven, even if their content is technically political, and their audience probably isn't either. When Ian gets in trouble for spewing white supremacist rhetoric for the 18th time that day, there's no short—
What are you fucking talking about, you psycho? You're a lunatic. You're fucking insane. Like, this has no bearing on reality. Like, we're living in some weird alternate version of the world where Vosh is a white supremacist and ContraPoints is just like doesn't care about anything other than herself. There's no point in discussing ideas because everything that we believe should just be declared through fiat and enforced with violence, even if we're not in the position to win the violence. So, like, this is just so massively weird and ineffectual.
Shortage of people rushing to talk about how he de-radicalized them from the alt-right, but did he though? Were you really alt-right? Were you at Charlottesville? Were you stalking people on kiwi farms? Were you retweeting libs of TikTok as she threatened child hospitals? Were you the one threatening children's hospitals? Were you actively pedo-jacketing trans women? Or did you just scroll through Twitter nodding along with edgelords? In my experience, nobody on the alt-right who was politically engaged were ever de-radicalized by BreadTube. They were passive, conservative, but probably couldn't be bothered to vote. Someone who might have voted.
So, in this part of the video, they're basically just saying like, no one who's politically active on the right has ever been subjected to other ideas and then changed their mind. The only people who ever change their minds are people who are only nominally on the right and now they're only nominally on the left, and that's it. No one ever actually, changes their opinion. No one who strongly believes one thing ever goes on to strongly believe something else, which is just like patently false and obviously not true.
Voted for Trump.
But, you know, in her experience it is, so whatever.
But their show was on that day, so and they were just as politically passive when they moved left. They changed none of their opinions, they didn't drop the edgelord bullshit about cancel culture, they didn't do anything. Maybe they whined on Twitter about woke scolds because woke scolds were making it harder to believe they were really shifting left, but to be de-radicalized, you had to have been radicalized in the first place. And if you were, actual de-radicalization takes way more therapy and way more self-reflection than watching a loser in his gaming chair scream at black women over opinions they never actually held. BreadTubers will claim to be recruiting, but aside from the fact that recruiting Nazis is completely counterproductive, they aren't recruiting for anything except their Patreon.
Wait, do you think someone like is just a Nazi by nature? Like what you just said, coupled with this picture of the wolf in sheep's clothing, makes me think that you just think like once a Nazi, always a Nazi. And that anybody who was once a Nazi, or even just right-wing, who now claims to not be that anymore, is just like, they're a lie. Nope. Once a Nazi, always a Nazi. Like, do you think Nazi is like a property inherent at birth? So like, if it's counterproductive to change people's minds, then basically anybody who is not born correct about everything is inherently a piece of shit in your eyes, right? So if no one is ever allowed to grow or change or, you know, have any sort of like character arc, basically. People are just like, you're born correct or you're born evil, and that's what you are. And there's no hope trying to change it because it's just immutable. Like, what are you talking about?
This is not your political engagement, this is your entertainment. This is a borrowed observation from Signified B-Sides. You should definitely watch his videos.
The thing that debate fans don't want to admit is that this is their entertainment. They're trying to validate repeatedly.
So fucking what? So what? So what? So what? So what? So what? So what? You're an entertainer. You don't think you're a fucking entertainer? You're making YouTube videos. People are watching them. It's entertainment for you too. Quit acting like entertainment can't intersect with real shit. It can. It does.
Debating insert white supremacists here for a week straight to say that's an important thing to do when no, you just like wrestling. You just like professional wrestling. You just like soap operas.
If everyone who claimed to be de-radicalized by BreadTube was honest with themselves and everyone else, they would respond to ContraPoints or Vosh posting a new video or stream with, "Oh, quiet everyone, Nana's gotta watch your stories," like my grandmother with Days of Our Lives, or my mother with Lois and Clark. They might like to believe that they're part of a leftist movement, but when was the last time they did anything that wasn't dogpiling someone on Twitter? Most likely over nothing. As much as many of these people talk about recruiting, they're not recruiting.
Wait, you earlier defended the people dogpiling Lindsay Ellis over nothing. So, like, are you okay with Twitter dogpiles or not?
For anything but their own fan bases. While I compared them to the cartoon community, I find a better parallel is between BreadTube and psychology channels. While you can find resources and directions for psychology and therapy on YouTube, you will also find a lot of content farm clickbait doing little more than using the language of psychology for clicks, and especially drama channels who just want to call people sociopaths and armchair diagnose people they don't like. And navigating that and knowing
I feel like whatever that was personal. I don't give a shit about your personal drama with other people, but hey, you know, whatever. You go ahead.
Is real and who is a fucking charlatan or just a novelty product is important. BreadTube has the same dichotomy. There are card-carrying socialists, but there's also just a lot of edgelords cashing in on a trend and a lot of actually hostile people who bully others for clout. But there's this real problem where if you expect a self-described socialist to uphold socialist ideals, you get called a woke scold and get dogpiled by Nazis. This isn't a tangible leftist movement, and I don't say that derisively. While LeftTube can occasionally do some real good, simply watching YouTubers, especially edgy brocialists who use radical politics as an excuse to avoid analyzing their ingrained biases, isn't going to make you into a good card-carrying leftist. It just feeds politics into the fandom cycle where
But why should they bother to question their biases when, according to you, people can't fucking change anyway? Once a Nazi, always a Nazi. You basically said that earlier. So, like, why should anyone bother with introspection when change is apparently impossible?
To bring this out into the real world, you should never get emotionally attached to a politician. They are disposable by nature. I didn't vote for the Liberal Party in the last 2 elections because of what nice, honest, moral people they were. They weren't. I voted for them because they mostly match my overall political goals. And unlike the other 3, were actually capable of keeping the Conservative Party from taking power and fucking everyone over. And if I were someone who cared about ideological purity and routinely called everything less than socialist than me...
Wait, you don't care about ideological purity? What the fuck is this video about? Like, this whole video has been the whole video is a refutation of that. So, no.
Neoliberal, I'd probably consider that a problem. But because I don't have an emotional attachment to politicians, and I know what the actual positions of these parties are, it's much easier to make the more grown-up strategic decision. Politics and fandom should never mix, and while BreadTube is mostly just politics as a...
Okay. But the problem is, the person most treating politics like fandom in this video is not, I hate to break it to you, it's not ContraPoints, it's not Voosh, it's you. Sorry to say, but it's you.
Entertainment, it is increasingly breeding this self-centered, egotistical version of socialism in its viewers, simply by virtue of the fact that many card-carrying socialist content creators have inoculated their viewers to be violently opposed to anyone who pressures them to actually uphold socialist values. The end result...
Oh yeah, that's totally happening. You're right about that one.
is people who view politics not as a strategic move on a chessboard, but as a declaration of your own moral goodness. And this parasocial relationship with political commentators goes both ways. Parasocial hatred of these people is not useful in any way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, you're totally free from that, clearly. I mean, once again, like, here you're actually saying something I agree with. I think being parasocially attracted to or repelled by a content creator, I mean, while it's natural and understandable, is not ultimately a productive thing. But at the same time, like, clearly you don't follow your own advice on this at all. At all. So it's kind of like empty coming from you.
It all creates engagement, especially for professional trolls. While I deeply dislike them, I can't summon the fire to be angry at creators like Contradiction.
Oh yeah, you're definitely not angry. That's true. I got that from this video. No anger here whatsoever.
Nostalgia Chick or Ian Learn to Shave. Couldn't even summon the energy to think up original insults there. Everything about them is so mundane and their actions are so predictable, especially when they glommed onto the right's cancel culture nonsense. See, when all this Buck Angel stuff was happening, ContraPoints ended up doing a Patreon stream that went over the backlash. Very dismissively, of course, but what did you expect? And the reason I bring it up is because during the stream, she made the remark that just because trans people were offended when she worked with transphobes wasn't a good enough enough reason for her to stop. And it's a poignant moment because it's the point where I realized doing another video on ContraPoints' bullshit was kind of ContraPointless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's like different trans people with different opinions on that. Maybe trans people are not like a monolithic group that all share one opinion on everything. I don't know. Could be.
You know that image you think of when you think of philosophy, of two Roman guys debating like it's a sport while a crowd gathers around them? That's all this is to most of BreadTube.
Yeah, those guys, I don't know if you know this, like had a massive influence throughout history. So that's a weird comparison. You know what? These BreadTubers are basically just like Socrates and Aristotle and shit. What, massively influential and important? What are you trying to say?
ContraPoints cared about what cishet people think of her and did not care what trans people thought of her. She fundamentally did not care until what they thought of her became annoying. And that's why her response to the backlash was so shit. Because she didn't care about mending a rift, she just wanted those little brats to shut up and leave her alone. She'd already decided who she wanted her content to appeal to, and if she wasn't dissuaded by thousands of people ostracizing her and giving her a mountain of headaches, another video from a nobody wasn't going to do that. The fact is, there isn't some secret mystery as to why this wealthy, conventionally attractive white woman is so hot.
Oh, man, that jealousy is so fucking transparent sometimes. There's no mystery as to why this wealthy, conventionally attractive white woman would feel this way. Oh, okay. Aw, I guess Lily's feeling insecure. That's what this all boils down to.
Hostile to criticism. She just doesn't care. She would rather just dress up like she's in a Family Guy skit about gay Dracula and contemplate her navel.
Trans people, less than 1% of the population, but 90% of online cultural discourse. Well, I mean, like, whose fault is that, really? That is not the fault of the left. One thing that Lily said in her video that's definitely true is that in a fucking perfect world, trans people could just be trans and it would be just uncontroversial and no one would give a shit. But unfortunately, we live in a world where there's a bunch of right-wingers who feel like they can make political hay out of it. And so the discourse has to be focused on it. Just like for a while, the discourse had to be focused on gay people. And for a while, the discourse had to be super focused on, you know, the civil rights movement or whatever the fuck. You know, unfortunately, because society can't just come to its senses on stuff like this, we have to have this fucking culture war bullshit. We have to have this dumb fuck fight where, you know, progressives and leftists and shit have to fight for basic, like, just normal human compassion, empathy, and reason. And the right wing goes kicking and screaming and says, no, we don't wanna. And that's just where it is. So don't blame the left for that shit. That's all on the right.
And I don't say this with any malice. ContraPoints isn't the first white woman with middling talent, deep self-loathing, and an adversarial relationship.
I don't know who most of these people are, but I could tell you right now, the ones who I do recognize all have more talent than was taken to make some fucking shit like this video. I don't think you have any business talking about other people's talent. Lindsay Ellis, way better at making videos than you are. ContraPoints, way better at making videos than you are. J.K. Rowling, I know I'm going to get shit for even paying any compliment to her, but fucking wrote a story that captured the popular imagination of multiple cultures across the globe. Clearly more talented than you are. Don't know who the rest of them are, but this just seems like a laundry list of like, people I dislike because I am insecure that they might be better than me. Well, let me just release you from some of that insecurity by letting you know, yes, all of the ones I recognize are better than you at what they do. So, sorry, but them's the facts.
But she did get me thinking about who I want my content to appeal to, because I don't want neo-Nazis liking my channel or my writing.
Well, good for you, because not only are neo-Nazis not going to like it, but I can't really see how anyone could. Maybe your videos about fandom are better. I know that this channel primarily is about bitching about Steven Universe and shit, so maybe that shit's better. But this shit here is fucking unwatchable and annoying as fuck. But hey, we're watching it, I guess.
Go out of my way to be as hostile to them as possible. Some people whine about this, saying I should be reaching out and helping de-radicalize them, but
I really don't think you're capable of that. So no, I don't really think you should be in that role either. I think maybe you should probably just stick to the fandom stuff and not even venture into this realm, because it's a shit show.
Fact is,
But like, I don't wanna, you know?
I just
Well, didn't you use that clip earlier to like pwn fucking ContraPoints, like, oh my god, she's got no reason for why she does what she does, and now you're using it as your own justification. So when you use that clip against her, it was a criticism, but when you use it for yourself, it's a justification for your own fucking, I don't know, narcissistic disregard for others. In this video where you, I mean, like, is there anything you fucking say in this video that you won't contradict later in this video? Like, this is like Bible levels of self-contradiction at this point. Pretty much everything you say, you demonstrate the opposite or say the opposite elsewhere in the video. And it's fucking remarkable.
Just don't care about conservative white men and their problems. Because to be that kind of person, I'd have to be someone that other LGBT people don't feel safe around. And
how the fuck? So your fucking contention here is, if you fucking cared about a white dude's problems, you would be dangerous for other LGBT people to be around? I mean, you're a fucking you're insane. I know I've said it before, but you're a fucking lunatic and you're not reasonable.
And I'd have to be someone that people of color don't feel safe around. And I don't.
No, you wouldn't have to do any of that. Like, what are you fucking talking about? You can fucking look at a white person suffering and be like, wow, I feel bad for them suffering. And then still be a friend to LGBT people and black people and everybody. There's no contradiction there. Why are you breaking people up into all these little distinct classes and then being like, these people are worthy, these people are bad, good, bad, sorting them into little piles based on your own little weird preferences and shit? Like, just fucking have empathy for the human race. Love all people. It's not that fucking hard. I mean, it is. But, you know, it's better than this shit.
I'm going to choose the latter. Am I good at that? Not really. I put my foot in my mouth on more than one occasion over my long career. Some people—
No way. I don't believe it.
People have forgiven me for those instances, some haven't, and I'm okay with people still being upset with me for that. I might not be the kind of creator I want to be right now, but—
What's this? Oh, so now when it comes to you, then you believe that people can change. You're on a journey towards self-improvement, but anyone else who claims to be is a fucking, oh no, they're just pieces of shit, wolves in sheep's clothing.
At the end of the day, I'm not a political YouTuber any more than all art is political, but I still care about who my content is appealing to. Anything that might make those groups feel unwelcome in my spaces or around my work is not something I'm okay with. And I have tried to adopt a policy over the last few years that if another marginalized person comes to me with something racist I've done, to not argue with them on that point because they have a better understanding of the subject than you do, you fucking idiot. I tend to take a hard and fast—
Yeah. So does Candace Owens have a superior understanding of race issues than you do by that logic, or no? Was she the exception because she's conservative? You know, I don't know. I would say that I have a superior take on race and black issues in America than Candace Owens does. I don't think that my skin tone and experiences necessarily are the only things that form that. I think there's all kinds of other shit that goes into it, like intentions, education, intelligence level, ethics.
Rule on how to respond when marginalized people confront me with something problematic I've done, unless it is brazenly 100% clear that they're doing so in bad faith.
Oh, wow. Well, give yourself that little out, right? Oh, yeah. All the times when I'm called out, but I don't like it, bad faith. Bad faith now. Oh, no, that time was in bad faith. When I can easily just fucking change course and go, I'm still learning, you guys. It's part of my journey of self-discovery. Then it's good faith. But when it's something you don't like and it's something that's a little too harsh for you to accept, then it's like, oh, well, that's a bad faith argument there.
I've always been firmly of the correct opinion that cancel culture isn't real, despite how many white liberals start to adopt the term whenever they get slapped down for being stupid. ContraPoints and Lindsay Ellis weren't canceled for one bad tweet or action. The both of them had been pissing people off with—
Well, ContraPoints has not, as far as I know, been canceled. There have been some attempts. Lindsay Ellis allowed herself to be canceled by letting a fucking hate mob chase her off the internet.
With a very distinct callousness for a long time. Hell, Ellis's last big controversy is often said to be about a single tweet that was perceived to be racist, but it wasn't even that. It was the response to being very plainly told why the tweet was racist. Some people came to her in good faith, she called them crazies and lashed out, and a larger group of people went, oh, okay, fuck you too, I guess. And it wasn't the first time this had happened. People made a big fuss about the pylon because hundreds of people were making these remarks, but she had far far more defenders than she had detractors. And this is the natural consequence of having a huge audience. When you show your ass, more people see it. And this goes double for Natalie. They did not get cancelled, they got shouted down. And not for one offense, for many. If I threw out the idea of Raylo-style fanfiction with Harriet Tubman, I'd expect people to be less patient with me too.
Raylo-style fanfiction with Harriet Tubman. I'll say something even more offensive. Harriet Tubman was an ugly-ass bitch. I know, right? That's mean to say. She was Harriet Tubman. She's a great woman. No doubt. I don't deny her greatness. But she wasn't great for her damn beauty, that's for sure. Not that that really matters, but, you know, hey. If I was that ugly, people would point it out to me on a regular fucking basis, so fuck y'all.
By bad faith actors on.
And I am pretty ugly, I guess, in some people's eyes. I don't know, my wife has always confused me by saying she finds me attractive, but I think that's just a lie to make me feel better about myself. What do you guys think?
Mass. Like, Lily, how can you not believe cancel culture is real? You've been stalked for a decade, you've had your name.
This was all just a way to pivot to like the woe is me shit, huh? The only reason cancel culture was even brought up is so she can be like, how can you not believe in cancel culture when all this horrible stuff has happened to you? When you've been so harassed? When you've been stalked and beaten and whipped with chains and, you know, all right. Yeah, let's hear it.
Put on manuscripts that aren't yours. You've been accused of abuse by your abuser. One former friend has been stalking you for 8 years. You've been assaulted IRL over some of this shit. Some crazy bitch is making her 5th video in a row trying to pedo jacket you like a store brand libs of TikTok as we fucking speak. How is this not an attempt to cancel you? Well,
I mean, yeah, that all sucks and all, but like, you know, I don't know. I feel like when someone has that much shit going on, like, isn't it kind of time to be like, am I doing something to contribute to this? You know, when you're victimized by one person, 2 people, 3 people, you know, I mean, but like when it's just like, goddamn, when it's like, oh man, and then this person betrayed me and this person's stalking me and this person's doing this. It's like, you know, like at some point, maybe you got to ask yourself, like, am I doing something here? Like, is it like you talk about introspection and self-awareness and shit? Like, I don't know. Like when there's that much drama in your fucking life, maybe question whether or not you might have something to goddamn do with it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you do. I'm just saying it's worth thinking about at that point.
this video went in a lot of different places. I just started writing and a lot of very personal frustrations came out. Hopefully that was intelligible, but knowing me, it probably wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Sorry.
I wasn't prepared for this one winning the poll, honestly. I meant what I said a minute ago. I don't really hold any anger toward terrible creators and left.
You might want to, once again, maybe some introspection in order there.
Not even the ones who have harassed me specifically. It all just kind of bleeds together into a big blinding blob. Like, I don't hate ContraPoints. She's a white woman with terrible opinions about shit. There's a ton of those. While disliking or disavowing creators is valuable, I think there's a lot of harm to yourself when you get emotionally invested in a creator's downfall. Personally, I would love it if a lot of BreadTube checked their own biases, got away from making verbal wrestling matches and drama videos, but I don't see any value in holding my breath.
I mean, you're basically just saying everyone should just conform to what you think, and it seems to be a thing across the board with you. You know, right down to the fact that you think people who disagree with you should be punched in the face. You believe that the types of content that you don't see any value in shouldn't be made. You believe that anyone who's more successful than you is somehow a phony. I mean, it's just like, I don't know, it's very transparent, and it's very clearly motivated more by emotion than reason. And it's just not that interesting. It's not very good. Now, I want to make something clear here at the outset of this. You know, as bad as that shit was, all of the right-wingers that I've looked at today were worse. And the reason they're all worse than this is because at least this person, I think, has their heart in the right place, but I think she's been blinded by envy, jealousy, pettiness, and a bunch of other emotional issues that need to be worked through. But at least, like, I can somewhat see what she's saying. Like, the great thing about hypocrites, and Penn Gillette will point this out to people, and I have always liked it. I'm either going to agree with what they say or what they do, you know? You're going to find some agreement with a hypocrite because they're on both sides of everything. And she's a hypocrite, so I definitely found things, even if I didn't like what I saw in terms of personality, there were certain things she said that I still agreed with. And I feel like I pointed them out when they came up. But, you know, whereas with that Bible guy or those right-wingers bitching about the MCU or whatever the fuck, all of that was just total ass and I didn't find a single thing to agree with about any of that. So at least there's some stuff I can agree with Lily on, even if I don't care for the personality that was on display. And I think there was a lot of disingenuousness and a lot of weird contradictory shit and a lot of fascist tendencies, not in terms of the politics of fascism, but in terms of the authoritarianism of fascism. Just this might makes right mentality coming from someone who doesn't even really strike me as particularly mighty, who probably would not like might versus right. Might is right if it was actually put into practice, because I don't think that a trans Cherokee woman would come out on top of that one. You know, you create a might makes right world, trans Cherokee women are not going to be the queens of that world. Hate to break it to you.